The memories of what I had done were coming back slowly, like the tide washing ashore the rotten corpses from a wreck. Selena was lighter than a pillow. The real weight was all those years of filth stored in my memory. Images. The blade I sunk deep into the stomach of my own mother. Those dark-haired women. Those hated clones of Margaret, split from head to toe as a sacrifice to the moon. Their organs displayed carefully, like some child fresco. Selena on the stage of smoke and mirrors. The glass I used to toast with her. The first time we talked. Her tears. The letters in which she told me about losing her kid. How her husband had been murdered. And our kiss. The blade I used to stab her. My father and the father of my mother died from the same madness. The same poison that men injected into the economic system they had created. On October 29th, 1929, millions of casualties. The scent of blood. And for the wolves, the beginning.
From William to Selena and letter. I have just finished reading your letter, Selena. Never had anyone open their heart so fully to me. I remembered you asked yourself how it was possible that your voice would match my piano so perfectly. You and me are lost souls, my dove. You are full of light, whereas I have been crawling down the abyss for far too long. I have told you some things, but not all of them. I didn't tell you about the blood in my hands. If you knew, one can't do anything against this fear. You don't come back from this darkness. It drives you crazy. Sometimes I forget this simple fact. I'm a madman. Your love reminds me of the monster I've always been. Your warmth, your perfume, that's the closest I'll ever be to heaven. You are an incarnation of the moon, Luna, but neither of you was able to save me. That was not meant to be. This country needs wolves as much as it needs game. You will never receive this letter. Tonight you'll expect me to love you and I will kill you, because I am a shadow and I can't say anything but darkness and night.
The hunt.
Do I have to go back the other way? So honestly, like I said, if you've been listening to me as I played this game, I thought that was the case, and that became readily apparent. It's not entirely clear, I think, on the timelines of this. Like, I guess he still went to the bar smoking mirrors the whole time after he killed her. And then when he was driving back, I guess he crashed because of the ghosts. And he killed his mother, Margaret, which I think was kind of apparent when I talked about he killed her between when he was 11 and 12. I'm not exactly sure when. But from the sound of it, she's blind, and he, I think, stabbed her in her bed. And that's why her body's there. And then he just left them there. And then he went, I guess he just grew up. Like, I don't know exactly what happened between when he's like 12 and 25. Like, did he start murdering... Did he become like the Wolf of Black Lake before or after he met Selena? That's what's not clear to me yet. Also, her being in the trunk, that's gotta be like a Silent Hill 2 reference, right? Like, not a reference, but like, oh, she was in the trunk the whole time back at the beginning of the game. That felt very Silent Hill. Maybe it's just because I just played that. So, and I don't know why they did the splitting path. Maybe I'm missing something, but like you could go over there and get the note, and that's a cool note. It was worth it. But now they make me walk all the way back, and obviously there's only enough dialogue for me to walk in here.
Selena's warmth was pulsing slowly in my arms as the dark spot of my culpability was growing over her stomach. In the sky, the moon was watching me, her son, as I was taking my first steps. Holding her daughter in my arms. A resurrection. A second chance. Selena was dying. I could tell from her body, tightly pressed against me. At times, her eyes would open and stare at me. Not a hint of anger or accusation. She could have let go. Let her light pass. Let my mother take me back. But she was protecting me. She was forgiving me. The moon was silently watching us as we made our last push through the night. Soon, dawn would come. The sun would wash away all that ink which had condemned us. Goodbye, Luna. Goodbye, Mother. This night had been too long already. I went as far as I could. Selena, the one who would give me everything life had left her, was fading away, despite my efforts to hold on to her light. If night was the world, then this world had no end. This was my America. Stranded here, facing the void under the cold glare of the silent moon. She was dying. She was dying for all eternity, and I kept awake to see her take her leave.
Okay, so that's the end of the game, I assume. So, I guess I'm going to talk about it. I definitely suspected like that was going to be a thing coming up, that he was William. So I'm not too surprised. Again, I'm not exactly clear on some of the details, and that's partially because I'm sure I didn't read all of the journals in the game. But like, for example, when he's talking there at the end, it makes it sound like this just happened, and I've seen that happen before in games where it's like, it literally happened 5 minutes before the game started and your character doesn't remember it. But in theory, he had enough time to go to the bar, or at least somewhere, and he's driving back. And she is a ghost, as far as, you know, if you take the idea that Margaret's ghosts and her are on his head, that works. But it just seems like, how could she possibly be alive in the trunk? I guess no, he was taking her somewhere, right? Maybe she was still alive, because assuming that wasn't Ghost, it was just like an apparition in his head. He killed her, or stabbed her, shoved her in the trunk, and he was on his way away to go deal with it. But then somehow he ended up back at his own house. I mean, he's crazy. Like, that's a game, so maybe he just drove around in circles or something. But, yeah. That's not clear for me. I really actually kind of like enjoyed this game. I thought the story was kind of neat. The setting was cool with the 1930s. I felt like there's a little bit too much like, hey, remember, this is around the Great Depression. Like, you remember that, right? Like, that was a little bit too telegraphed, but not too bad. I definitely felt it had its own style. Art looked good. I think my only real complaint is it was a cool attempt, but just innately, with the way the game's set up, you're just going to be running around in the dark and not understanding. I wish the game did, like, use small little light sources so you could just have bearings. Or, like, very early on, I thought they did better because they would let you see the outlines of objects in the dark. So you can't exactly see everything, but you still kind of understand. Or, even though you might die, you gain more info. Like, there's a lot of times in there where I felt like, I'm just dying in the dark. I'm not learning anything. I don't even know if I'm doing the right approach. And I think that was kind of annoying. I don't know what I exactly do better, but just, like, make it clearer to the player that what you're trying to do. Like, there's plenty of times, if you watch me actually running the game, it's where I would just, like, go into a screen transition and now I'm walking into a wall, or it's dark so I can't see what I'm doing, where I'm walking so I'm running away from his mother, and then it's like, oh, there's a book on the ground and I can't see, and that's why I can't walk over a spot, so I get caught. And it's just like, it's annoying. I felt that it was a great space, like the actual mansion was cool. I still don't know if I fully understood all the mechanics in the game. Like, was I supposed to drag? Like, were you supposed to like kill more of those Margarets? Like, that's not clear to me. Like, sometimes it seems like you just get away. I feel like the fact that I knew like, okay, if they're sitting down, if they're on the floor, it's more like a plot Margaret. Where if it's walking around, that's when I dodge. Luckily, no real big jump scares outside that one, which okay, that's a give me. It's a spooky game. It's definitely scary. Like there's a lot of times just like, ooh, this game is really good at maybe not suspense, but like the terror, like not terror, horror, where it's just like, I gotta go in that room. I gotta do it, and I don't want to do it. And just like the suspense of walking into a room for the first time was really good in this game. And I think it came across where it's like, this room's a bad thing. Like, I don't know what it's a bad room. So that was good. I would play it again. I don't think I'll do the achievements. I think all the achievements in this game are just basically get all the collectibles. I think there's probably one for beating it in so long. I think it was there's an achievement for like beating it all in one night, and I assume that was something in game, but I'm guessing it means beating it one day. If you knew where to go, this game probably goes really quickly. I'm sure there's stuff I miss. I think talking about missing, I think one of the things that might have trouble for this game is that fact that you could just miss very critical things. Like you would just miss a light switch and you don't know it's there, and instead think you have to like sprint past Margaret. That could heavily impact your appearance of the game. When I don't know what it would be, but if they could somehow say like, oh, I put glow in the dark paint around all the light switches so I could know where they are in the dark to help me from Margaret. Something like that would have been really nice. Like, I don't care what it is, just some kind of indication so it's like, okay, there is a light switch in this room. Because there are times I go to wander around like, this is so tough, and it's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to be doing this. Or like, oh, there was a light switch over there. I should have gotten right away. Like, particularly if you look at like the attic, I thought like, oh no, I think this is just they want me to sprint past it. And then I pull the switch, and then they all go away. And that was entirely wrong. I was supposed to go to the left, get the record, and then Selena would do it. And it wasn't clear. And there's a lot of moments like that where like I just don't really understand. Especially in the beginning of the game, which is important because this game is not very long. I'd say it's about 6 hours overall. Is in the beginning I was just very like not sure how the game wanted me to play, and I got a better feel for it, and they became a little bit more well designed as you get further in the game, the areas. But I wish it was a little bit easier to pick up. I don't know if they could really do an actual tutorial section, but I don't know. Or I still don't understand. They say like, oh, you can get past Margaret if you don't have your lights. I don't know if that's actually a system in the game, or if that's just them of saying like, hey, yeah, if you're good enough to know the layout, you can just run past every single one of them. And I bet you could probably even sequence break very specific stuff. Like if she's just like standing around the corner, you can probably drag her out and run around. And that's probably why they have the plot ones like sitting down and not getting out of the chair. They just swipe at you, because then it's impossible to get by. And like there's one on the stairs up to the second floor that was impossible to get by, and because they probably don't want you going to like the second story until you definitely did stuff. Whereas there's other ones where they don't care if you sequence break. I was actually also surprised to learn this was made by Activision. I was expecting like a far simpler game. Like I just came off playing 3-4 Home, and they were like the same price. And I thought this was gonna be like, oh, like a really neat little gimmick, fun, maybe like 3 hours, and like it was way more fleshed out than I expected to be. I thought it was like a really good length, where you could binge this in one night. It's okay to play it over 2 or 3. The saves weren't too terrible or infrequent, as long as you made sure you did them. I think overall I would recommend this game. I don't think it's one of the games where I think if I had to rate it, maybe 6 or 7 out of 10. I'm not a big game rater. Where it's like, if you like horror games, you'd probably enjoy playing this. This isn't something I would go out and say, oh, you need to play this because it's so good. It's just like, I don't know how to describe it other than that they tried something. It worked out pretty well. It's got some downsides to the whole light system. But overall, I don't regret my time with the game, and I think this is actually I want to, for the channel, do more stuff like this. Like, when I made this channel, I wanted to be able to use it as a way to sit down and just play, like, really interesting games. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, this is the giant Resident Evil that just came out, or Outlast, and here's my run-through of it. But just, like, I would love to have played this game even if I wasn't filming, because it's just like, huh, that's cool. And I like kind of, for my own sake, talking through it. Whereas, like, I love the fact that I kind of picked up on him being William earlier. It's like I would love to go back and when I edit this, see that moment of me in that little planetarium section where it's like, this game wouldn't pull that, right? Nah. But he does wear the same hat. But they probably didn't do this. But they just probably did the assets where. But then how does he know how to play the piano? And just kind of was like, maybe I'm picking up on something. That felt like a very natural thing. And then it just became more and more obvious, like when you're running through, let's call it the catacomb things. There was definitely some talk at the end there that he was saying it's like, you know, a little bit much about this, even if it is you narrating this after the fact, which I guess implies he lives. I don't really know at the end what happened there. Like, it's not exactly clear to me. Like, I guess was that all kind of in his head? Did he actually make that grave and take her there? I'm not sure at all, but it was pretty much sealed the deal. Not when it said he's William and she was in the trunk, but when he climbed out of the grave, which I think maybe was supposed to imply that this is how he got over it. Is that I was thinking it was gonna be something like he just forgot all of it. He just knows he knows it has happened, but he doesn't remember his life, so he's free of it, and he can get out. And that was supposed to be him being kind of reborn. He's like coming out of the grave. I think if you wanted to make a better twist, they would have had to make it in such a way where it really was like a closed loop. Like you wake up at the manor or something. It just seems weird to me, the fact that you enter the game driving, that could have been possible. Like, for all I know, maybe she's been dead for weeks, you know, and she's been in the car. That just seems a little clunky. I still, like, it wasn't what I expect. One thing I gotta mention about the game is my perception of what was going on changed a lot. Like, at first, I assumed it was the mother's family had some secret alchemical stuff going on. And I thought that's what it was, is she always seemed evil. And then it turns out, she came back from the dead. Now the fact that she hated all of us is kind of a problem, because she can do that. And then I thought maybe it's just, she hated Henry or something. So she was haunting their kid. And then the whole Blacklight thing is like, oh yeah, so she's killing people that probably looks like Selina because she doesn't want like Selina because she doesn't like William. And then no, it's okay, he's doing it, and maybe that's why she's haunting him. Like maybe it's like a good ghost, like she's trying to take down this murderer of her son she feels responsible for, especially with like her whole father thing. And I don't think she never saw any kind of like turnabout. Like nothing really redeemed her. She was just kind of explained. But she still seems like a bad person. I think she was like dealt a bad hand, like with the whole her father went crazy, then she went blind. There's a lot of great stuff in this game. I actually really loved reading the journals, just because you could kind of see everything interact, not just that development. It was really cool. So I'm really hoping to play more stuff like this. I think this is the perfect example of the stuff I would love to have on this channel, where it's just like, you know, I'm glad I played this game. I can't wait to tell someone else about it. Like, I played this game this week, and I'll probably talk about it on the podcast. It was good. It was really something. It's not perfect, but it was a good time. I might spend a little more time on this in my free time. Like, if the achievements are easy, it'd be kind of cool to go back through and just see everything. I don't think there's anything actually with a bonus, but if I had and maybe this is there, but the one thing I would really love for them to do, for you to unlock if you get like all the achievements, is just you get a lantern that illuminates the entire room and kills all Margaret illusions, and it's essentially like a developer commentary situation where it's like, hey, you played the game, got all the achievements, here's a lantern, just walk around, see what was actually in the house, so that it's an easy way, so that if you want to read all the journals, you can. If you want to say like, what was that thing in the kitchen, I never saw it because I always had to run away, you could do that. I would really think that would have been a nice addition to do this here, because like there's a bunch of areas like I wasn't really clear on. Like a lot of the hallways were constantly haunted, especially like early on the second floor. I don't really feel I got a good eye of them, or like those, especially those like later caverns. I just kind of like was stumbling through. It'd be nice to be able to walk through and like, okay, I definitely got everything, or like, okay, now that I see everything, I understand this puzzle, or just like simple stuff like, oh yeah, of course there'd be all those music sheets out there. It was next to the music box, but you probably didn't make that connection because you'd see the music sheets, and then hours later you come back into the music box, and little things like that. It'd be nice just to have it all laid out. And I must say, this is one of my big critiques of a lot of horror games, and I have to give this respect for, is it explained everything. I think there's that's a lot to be said for a game when it's like, this is what happened. It was all planned out. It was all like well executed. This is why this was there. This is why this was there. I think a lot of games fall in the trap where it's just like, was Margaret a ghost? Who was she? Why did she die? And the game just ends on that, and it's cheap because they feel like keeping it mysterious is a good way to end the game. Instead, I think it's just an easy out, and I'm really glad that this game explained everything. There's still some things I'm not quite sure about. Like, it's still not clear if maybe those shadows really were a ghost, because that's not clear. Or like, was Selena a ghost? Or are these just like visions in his head? That's not clear either. But everything otherwise makes sense. Like, it doesn't really matter if it's a ghost or not. You're the only person there, so it doesn't matter if it's in your head or not. But maybe that might also explain why I was so confused earlier on about the death sequences, about why he's not actually dying per se. It just is weird. Like, they don't show him, and I didn't know if it was actually like an animation thing. Like, they didn't want to show this crazy death scene just because they didn't want to animate it, or I thought maybe it was just been like not worth the time for them to do, or like I said, I thought maybe touching her actually made him go crazy or something, and that was what was happening. Well, I think now the reason that is because it's probably not actually there. He probably actually does just kind of like wake up after the fact, and that's what was it being like hinted at. I do think some of the Margaret choices, like I said, the randomization was a little annoying, and because like sometimes it's just like, oh, I just died, and they're all in different spots. And I did feel like there's sometimes like at the end I was like, oh, I just don't want to deal with you, or like why do there need to be like 4 in this room? Maybe make it like 2, or just like I was kind of done with that mechanic after a while. It's I don't want to have to constantly keep going in and like there's another Margaret. So that's my only critique, was it kind of wore on me, but I think that shows that the game's like the perfect little length where any more is probably too much, but I felt they covered all their bases. And overall, like I said, I think like 6 or 7 out of 10. It's not something I'm going to go brag about. This is amazing, but I really enjoyed it, and I want more stuff like this on the channel. I don't know if this studio actually did more, but it was definitely kind of cool. So hopefully we'll see more like this on the channel.